y'all, today we are in Tool, Texas. Yes, Tool is in like the tool. But we're diving into a lesser known part of the Bonnie and Clyde story. We're here to visit the gravesite and talk about the life of Bonnie Parker's sister, Billie Jean Parker, later known as Billie Mace. Most people know of the legend and story of Bonnie and Clyde. I know you do. If you follow my channel, we cover so many Bonnie and Clyde topics, but what doesn't get discussed a lot is the toll that it took, their crime spree, the toll that it took on their families. Like Clyde's parents had a very difficult time with Clyde there, but also Bonnie Parker's sister. She had a lot of after effects that happened with her from what they did. I'm thankful this is a very small cemetery, so it should not be hard for me to find her. But while we do, let's give a walk and talk, as I like to normally do. Billie Jean Parker was born 1914, the middle child of three. Bonnie was the bright, artistic one, Billie more so the quieter one. Their older brother, Hubert, often stayed out of trouble for the most part. But when Bonnie and Clyde started making national news, their families were really put in the spotlight as well, because the law officers and that all knew they were in Dallas. They couldn't be going certain places, or it was very hard for them to meet up with Bonnie and Clyde, and there would be police officers that would wait outside the Parker home, as an example, with Billie Jean there waiting to see if Bonnie and Clyde would come home. Bonnie and Clyde's relatives were often harassed, and Billie Jean, who really had nothing to do with Bonnie and Clyde's actions, ended up paying a steep emotional price. I have a feeling, a hunch if you will, that she's over this way. Now keep in mind, Billie Jean was only 19 when Bonnie and Clyde were killed in 1934. So imagine that. Imagine losing your sister in one of the most violent ambushes in American history, with photos of her sister's body splashed across newspapers across the country. I could not imagine. And after Bonnie and Clyde died, Bonnie Parker, as we all know, became kind of this figure, along with Clyde, where her sister then had to live with grief the rest of her life, as you can imagine. I read somewhere too that a lot of historians agree that Billie carried a mixture of both love and sorrow for her sister. Bonnie wasn't always the cigar chomping outlaw that they show in the photos. She was a girl who wrote poetry, loved music, and really helped raise Billie when they were younger. I find it interesting too that Billie Jean once said Bonnie Parker at one time was always full of life, always laughing, always singing, and she wasn't really, at least in the beginning, she wasn't the hard criminal that she turned out to be. I have to mention Billie Jean Mace actually served 1 year at Alderson Federal Prison Camp in West Virginia. She served 1 year for harboring Bonnie and Clyde, providing them food and supplies, and even helping them evade capture during their visits. And as I sometimes do, I just talk and walk. I walked right past her. Here she is. I'm surprised there's no flowers here. Billie Jean Moon, December 16th, 1912 to May 12th, 1993. Rest in peace. So as you can see, she lived to be a much older woman than her sister Bonnie ever would. And buried right next to her is her husband Arthur B. Moon. That's how she got the Moon last name. He died in 2002. Oh, an Army World War II vet. That's cool. Yeah, 1993. Wow. Much longer. What was that? 79? Bonnie lived to be 23 or 24, something like that. So after Bonnie died, Billie married a man by the name of Jim Mace. That's how she got the name Billie Mace afterwards. I guess she married Arthur B. Moon later on. But she tried to live a quiet, more normal life She had children, worked, and did everything she can to avoid the spotlight, but however, the Parker name followed her everywhere to the rest of her life. She barely would talk about Bonnie and what happened. I mean, I think she would tell stories to, you know, her family and close friends and that, but she really wanted to kind of put it behind her and mainly stay out of the spotlight with the Parker family and the last name. Unlike, I'm sure there's some other members of the family that like to use them to be, you know, get their little bit of fame, but not her. She wanted really nothing to do with it after Bonnie was gone. I have to say, it's interesting standing here, despite everything that Bonnie Parker became, you know, an icon, a legend, a symbol of rebellion during the Great Depression. Billie kind of represents the side of the story most people forget. The families that are left behind picking up the pieces. At the end of the day, she didn't choose this life. She didn't choose the headlines or the danger of the fame or, you know, the cops always watching guard when Bonnie and Clyde were still on the run. And at the end, she just had to live with the consequences. I also think it's interesting, you know, Bonnie and Clyde died very young and are laying to rest closer to Dallas. But as you can see, you know, Billie Jean lived to 1993, so she actually got to see like the 1967 Bonnie and Clyde movie come out and all the books come out and all the press and all that came on later. So I kind of wonder like what was going through her mind, you know, every time her sister would come up, and the legend just continues to grow even to this day. But yeah, guys, here's her grave. Quiet, simple. A reminder that behind every legend, there's a real family with real loss, that's for sure. Billie Jean, it was cool to come and see you today. I definitely feel for you what you had to go through with Bonnie and Clyde, but I'm glad to make it out here to Tool, Texas, and cover your gravesite. I'm not sure if anyone on YouTube has paid her a visit, but I'm glad to see you. Alrighty, y'all, that was, I'm glad I made it out here. As you know, if you follow my channel, I cover so many Bonnie and Clyde real life locations, and sometimes you just got to get out of Dallas and come check out other graves like this. But if you want to see Bonnie and Clyde stuff, I have an entire Bonnie and Clyde playlist. Go to all different locations around the US. I hope you check it out, and I'll see you there. Thanks for joining me on another Famous Graves adventure.